All right, let's talk about one of the most tense relationships on the planet, Iran versus the United States. You see it in the headlines all the time, right? But the real story? Well, it started way before most of us were even around. So let's dig in.
And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? I mean, think about it. There are more than 50 Islamic countries out there. So why, for decades now, has so much of the world's attention, especially from America and Israel, been laser-focused on just one? What is it about Iran?
Well, the answer isn't something you'll find in today's news, or even yesterday's. To really understand what's going on, we have to jump in a time machine and go way, way back, all the way to World War II.
This whole story kicks off with a king, but not just any king. A king basically handpicked to serve the interests of the West.
Okay, so picture this. It's the middle of World War II. Iran's leader at the time decides to side with Hitler. Now, for the British, who desperately needed Iranian oil for the war effort, this was a huge problem. They couldn't let that happen. So they just invaded. They kicked the king off the throne and put his son, just a 22-year-old kid, in his place. Why? Because they knew this young guy would be much more friendly to them and their interests.
And boy was he. The new Shah was absolutely captivated by the West. He immediately started this massive campaign to make Iran look more like Europe or America. He banned the hijab for women, closed a bunch of mosques and religious schools, and really pushed this culture of parties, music, and alcohol. I mean, get this. It got to the point where Iran, this deeply religious country, became a major exporter of alcohol. Wild, right?
And this created a massive, massive gap. I mean, look at this. On one side, you've got the Shah's inner circle throwing what was literally the most expensive party in world history. We're talking 600 limos for guests, dinner served on solid gold plates. But on the other side, the reality for most Iranians was widespread poverty, food shortages, and a growing anger about how their religious values were being ignored. This wasn't just a rich-poor divide. It was a ticking time bomb.
And that bomb was about to go off. All that anger and resentment, it found a leader. And it sparked a revolution that was spread using technology that seems almost ancient to us now, the simple cassette tape.
The Shah's biggest critic was this Islamic scholar living in exile, a guy named Ayatollah Khamenei. But the Shah, with the backing of the United States and his huge army, he just wasn't worried. He looked at Khamenei and basically said, "This old man, what's he going to do to me?" Well, that turned out to be a massive miscalculation.
So, from his exile in Iraq, Khomeini did something kind of brilliant. He started recording these fiery speeches, railing against the Shah, right onto cassette tapes. Then his supporters would smuggle these tapes back into Iran. And from there, it was like a pre-internet viral campaign. People made copies and copies of copies. The tapes spread like wildfire through mosques and marketplaces, completely bypassing the government-controlled radio and TV. He was building a massive following, one tape at a time.
And that cassette tape revolution became a tidal wave. The Shah finally realized that not even his powerful American allies could protect him from his own people. So, he fled. He just left the country. And with him gone, the entire board was flipped upside down.
And when Khomeini finally came back to Iran after 14 long years away, the welcome he got was just unbelievable. An estimated 7 million people flooded the streets to greet him. To this day, that's a world record for the largest welcoming crowd in human history. It just shows you how much power he now had.
And the shift in tone was immediate. Suddenly, the streets were filled with chants of "Death to America." And then, the moment that changed everything, the point of no return. A group of students, followers of Khomeini, stormed the American embassy in Tehran. And they took every single person inside hostage.
Their demand was crystal clear, and it was aimed right at Washington. See, the U.S. had given the exiled Shah a safe place to stay. So Khomeini's ultimatum was simple. You hand over the Shah, and we'll release the 50 hostages. And just like that, the standoff that has defined the last 40-plus years had officially begun.
This revolution completely changed the game. Iran's new leaders looked around and realized, okay, we've just made an enemy of the most powerful country in the world. And they came to a stark conclusion. To guarantee their own survival, they needed the ultimate insurance policy. They needed a nuclear program.
Now, at the very center of this whole nuclear issue is this one piece of technology, the centrifuge. The easiest way to get your head around it is to think of it like a super-powered washing machine, but for atoms. You toss uranium inside, you spin it at mind-boggling speeds, and what you get out depends on one simple thing: how long you keep it spinning.
And this is the key to everything.
This is what all the arguments are about. If you spin that uranium for a relatively short time, you get what's called low-enriched uranium, maybe around 5%. That's perfect fuel for a nuclear power plant to generate electricity. But if you let that centrifuge keep spinning for much, much longer, you get highly enriched uranium. We're talking 90%, and that is the stuff you need to build a nuclear bomb. It's this two-faced nature of the technology that has the whole world so worried.
Now, Iran's official line has always been the same. Our program is for peaceful energy only. To back this up, their supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, even issued a fatwa, that's a really serious religious ruling, stating that making, owning, or using nuclear weapons is haram, totally forbidden under Islam.
But here's where it gets complicated. Skeptics will immediately bring up a concept in Islamic jurisprudence called taqiyya. Basically, it's a principle that allows for lying or concealing your true beliefs if you're under threat or to protect your community from serious harm. So the argument from critics is, what if this fatwa is just a form of taqiyya, a public statement meant to throw enemies off the scent of a secret weapons program?
And it's this deep, fundamental mistrust on both sides that has locked them into this endless cycle of sanctions, negotiations, deals, and then collapse. A cycle that's still playing out right now.
The main weapon the U.S. has used in this fight isn't military, it's economic, sanctions. And they've been absolutely crushing. You can see it right here. Before the heavy sanctions hit, Iran's economy was on an upward path. But after, it just falls off a cliff. For a country with so much oil, the economic pain has been immense.
All that economic pain eventually brought both sides to the table. And in 2015, we got a huge breakthrough, the Iran nuclear deal. The idea was simple. Iran scales back its nuclear program and the world lifts the sanctions. But it didn't last. Just 3 years later, President Trump pulled the U.S. out of the deal. Iran's response? They elected a hardline president, Ibrahim Raisi, and tensions shot right back up. And now, after Raisi's recent death, there are whispers that secret talks with the U.S. might be starting up again. It has been a total roller coaster.
But through all these ups and downs, there's been one warning that we hear over and over and over again, especially from Israeli officials. And it's this: Iran is just a few months away from having a nuclear bomb.
Sounds pretty urgent, right? But here's the kicker. That's not a new warning. Not at all. In fact, that exact same claim that Iran is just a few months away has been repeated for the last 25 years.
So that's what brings us to today. After decades of hostility, broken deals, and this deep, deep mistrust that goes all the way back to those smuggled cassette tapes, you really have to wonder, in a conflict that's this old, this bitter, this complicated, is a new beginning even on the table? Is there any way out?